Okay, good morning, students. Am I audible? Okay, so let's wait for some 2 minutes. If there are any other students willing to join, let them join first. Then we'll start. So by the time your friends join this session, let me give the outline of today's session. Most probably this is the last session of .NET. Most probably I don't know the schedule of next week, but as of this week, this is the last session, and this session mainly will be dealing with the doubt solving sessions of yours. So I hope you all have gone through the question bank that was already uploaded in your e-content. So I'll be happy to solve all your doubts that you have regarding your question bank or any questions in the question bank mainly. That what you should write in a particular question as answer or anything else, whatever you want to have, you can solve it right now in this session. Also, I'm going to discuss the questions of unit number 1, 4, 5, and 8 mainly today. 1, 4, 5, 6, and 8. I'll just go through the questions of it so that you will come to know what you should write in those particular questions. Fine. So let's wait for about a minute and then we'll start. Okay, my voice is very slow. Someone has given me a text. From my side, it is 100%. So anyone still you are finding very low voice? Okay. Okay, so let's start with our session. So I'm starting with unit number 1 first. That is the pure theory session. So unit number 1. Let me zoom it first. So I'm not discussing 1 mark MCQs or 1 mark one-liners. I will directly move on to the 4 marks question. Right. So what is the first question? That is define .NET framework, draw neat diagram of its architecture. So remember students one thing, whenever only architecture has been asked as a question, like this question, then you should draw the architecture with pencil. That is what is expected as a faculty or evaluator from my side. So here you need to just define what is .NET framework and draw its architecture. That's it. Then comes define CLR, draw its neat diagram. So again, define it and draw it using a pencil. List all the responsibilities of CLR, explain any 2 of them. So you should at least list 6 responsibilities, and among them you should explain any 2 of them. Like what is memory management, what is garbage collection, what is the execution of program, likewise. In one line, nothing more. Then comes explain CLS and CTS briefly, common language specification and common type specification or common type system. You need to explain briefly, nothing else. Explain side-by-side execution and versioning that you already know. Side-by-side means parallel execution of our programs. Versioning means different version of a program executing parallelly. Then explain with diagram working of MSIL. So you need to draw the diagram of MSIL that was a part of your PPT. Just draw it. This was the part of your, I think, midsem also. This question was a part of midsem. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Sorry. Explain with the diagram the working of MSIL. We will explain what is MSIL first, then draw its diagram and then explain its steps. That's it. Then comes explain jitters. You need to explain three jitters: pre-jitter, econo jitter, and normal jitter. Then comes GSC, Global Assembly Cache, and Dynamic Link Library. In short, 2 to 3 points for each. That is enough for us. List all the features of .NET Framework. Explain any two of them. So you list all the features like cross-platform interoperability, platform independence, side-by-side execution, versioning, then faster execution, security, whatever features you come to know, you can write and then list any 6 and then write and explain any 2 of them. That will be okay. Explain the concept of DLL hell and end to hell DLL. So again, it is a part of PPT. You need to just explain these two concepts in 2 to 3 lines each. 2 lines, 3 lines for this and 2 to 3 points for this one. Then moving on to 6 to 8 marks question. Again, it will be the combination of all the 4 marks questions. It won't be anything else. It will be just a randomization of or repetition of same questions in different way maybe. So you don't worry rather looking at these 10 questions. It is just the repetition. So what is .NET technology? Explain the concept of OOP and POP, that is procedure oriented language. So you can either differentiate or explain these two in detail individually. That is your choice. No issues from my side. Either you differentiate OOP and procedure, either you differentiate C++ and C language, or you explain each of them. That will be okay from my side. Then next question is draw the architecture of the following. Very good. It's .NET Framework architect, .NET Framework, CLR, MSIL, and side-by-side. So you just need to draw the diagram of each of them, nothing else. You just need to draw the diagram of each. That's what you need to do in this question. 2 marks each. Or if it is for okay, Harsh, I will get back to your answer after I complete my session. Fine. Then comes explain .NET Framework architecture. So you need to draw the architecture either using pen or pencil. That will be your choice. Explain each 7 layer properly in 1 or 2 lines minimum. So that will be your answer. Then comes explain CLR in detail. Again, you draw the diagram and explain its layers properly in 1 or 2 lines each. Then comes explain responsibilities of CLR. So now you need to list and explain minimum 6 responsibilities of CLR, and also you need to explain in 1 or 2 lines the jitters, all the 3 types of jitters. That is pre, econo, and normal jitters. Then comes you need to explain common language specification, common type system, and base class library in detail. That means for each you need to write 2 points minimum. Then comes what is MSIL? Explain its compilation cycle of .NET Core with proper diagram. The diagram that you will draw here in MSIL, the second question, the same diagram you will draw and then you will explain the complete cycle for 6 to 8 marks. Then comes explain GSE, DLL, and to hell DLL in detail. So again, it's a repetition of 4 marks question. Explain each of them in 2 to 3 lines or 2 to 3 points rather. Then comes explain all the features of .NET Framework. So at least I am expecting 6 features from your side that you are going to explain in 2 lines at least. Then comes explain the following: versioning, versions of .NET, econo jitter again from the jitters, side-by-side execution. Again, it is a part of .NET Framework features, and dynamic link library, that is DLL file. So if you see, the questions are repetitive. So what I will suggest you in unit number 1, you just prepare 6 to 8 marks question. So all the 4 marks questions will automatically be covered in these questions. So that will be beneficial for you in your final examination. So any doubt regarding this unit number 1 questions? Anyone? So we can resolve it right now. Yeah, any doubts? Unit number 1. Okay, so let's move on to unit number 4, that is advanced C sharp. Right, so moving on with the advanced C sharp unit, let us move to directly 4 marks question. Right. So the first question is explain reflection in brief in C sharp. So already I have said that reflection is a metadata about your program. So you just need to explain this in about 4 to 5 points properly. What is reflection, what it does, what method it has, and what property it has. That's it. Nothing more. Then explain collection in C sharp. So array list, then stack, queue. So all these collections you need to explain in 2 lines, each of them. Then explain file in C sharp. So again, in file, what you will see, you will write what is file, and then you will only explain what is binary reader, binary writer, directory, and directory info. Only explain these 4 properties, nothing more. Then explain file stream class in IO. So you will first explain what is file stream class, why it is used, and then you will explain file open and file access properties of file stream class actually. Then next, write an example to demonstrate the use of delegates. So already that this program is a part of your PPT that is already uploaded in your e-content. So you just need to write that code, nothing else, only delegate one, nothing else. Then explain the concept of threading. So you will explain what is threading. You will draw, then you will draw the life cycle of that particular threading and then explain each of its component. That's it. You don't need to explain anything else in threading. And the last question is explain the properties of thread class. So for that you will explain these properties like current context, current culture, current thread, execution context, thread state, name. So these properties you will explain in 1 or 2 lines. Next, write an example to demonstrate anonymous method. So again, that is the part of PPT. You will just write the program of anonymous method. So again, it is a part of PPT, a different way of implementing delegate. That is it. That's it. Next question, apply method overloading to find multiplication of varied variables. Implement at least 3 methods. This is the repetition of the question from unit number 3. So don't worry, it is already discussed. Again, the last question is again a repetition of unit number 3. So don't worry about the same thing. Only it is method overloading, nothing else. So moving on to 6 to 8 marks question, it will be again the combination of all 4 marks. See, explain reflection in detail in C sharp, collection in detail, file in C sharp. You need to define first and then you need to write the program of delegate. You need to define what is threading and explain its properties. Then you need to define methods of thread class. Then again, briefly explain what is anonymous method, write an example. So it again a repetition of your 4-mark question. And remaining these 2 programs, it is again the repetition of unit number 3. I have just kept it for you, so it won't be tough for you to write the answers in the exam. I have made some repetitions of questions, nothing else. And again, there is a combination of questions: explain, delegate, threading, and anonymous. What you should write is provided here. So don't worry regarding what you should write. It is already solved here in the later part of the PDF. Fine. So this is all about unit number 4. It will be purely theory based. Only if your lucks are quite good or bad, I don't know, then these programs may be asked. Okay. So moving on next to the unit number 6, again purely theory based. So again, if you see explain GDI, explain graphics class. In GDI, explain any methods, 5 methods of graphics class. So everything is very short and purely theory based, and everything is mentioned in your PPT also. Let us say explain GDI, so you will explain what is GDI, why it is used, and you will just write in short what is graphics class, what is paint class, and what is font class. Then explain graphics class. So you need to explain graphics class properly, and then you will just write a short code that how you will create the object of graphics class. That's it. Then any 5 methods of graphics class: draw arc, draw line, draw polygon, draw rectangle. Likewise, you have to just explain any 5 methods in one line. That's it. Then explain objects of graphics class. So objects of a graphics class will be pen, brush, font, and yes, here brush, font, pen, and color are the objects of graphics class. So just explain this in 1 or 2 lines as per your requirement or your convenience. Next, explain pen class. So you'll just write down pen class, what is pen class, and write all its 4 different methods. Then explain color structure, that is you need to explain ARGB. Again, you will explain font class, any 5 properties of font class in the PPT, available in the PPT, a brush class, and rectangle structure. So what is rectangle structure, how it is declared, and what are its parameters? That is 4 integer values that we pass in the parameters, that you need to explain in detail. That's it. Again, if I combine all these questions, it will be 6 to 8 marks questions. Explain GDI in detail, explain graphics class with all its methods and objects, explain pen class with its color structure, explain font class with properties, explain brush class and rectangle structure. Then whatever program that we discussed in GDI, that's what I have asked it as a question. Explain draw rectangle property of a graphics class and generate 2 multicolored rectangle. Then draw arc function in graphics class, create 1 blue colored arc. Then draw line function, create 3 different lines. Draw ellipse function and create 3 different ellipses. So that is what your questions contain. It's just a theory, nothing else, and the simple codes that you need to write as an answer. Next, explain folder browser dialog, file open dialog, save file dialog, and font dialog. So only you need to write what it is and how you can create it in your Windows Home application. Just 2 lines for each. That's it. So this will be your 6 to 8 marks questions. Already all answers are given here in the PDF. as well as in PPT. So you can refer any of this, no issues. And then coming back to the last unit, that is unit number 8, that is WPF1. Moving on to its 4 marks question, it will be only theory. If you see, define WPF, draw its Smith diagram, explain features of WPF already available in your PPT, differentiate WPF and Windows form available in your PPT, 4 points maximum, explain text box and label control, explain radio button and checkbox control, explain list box and combo box control, right? So whatever things I have mentioned in the PPT, just you need to write here in this. So let us say if I say explain text box and label control. So for this, what you will write? You will write what is text box. Then you need to write what its default event is, that is text change event. And then you need to write only a simple XML code that defines text box. Already that is the code is defined in your PPT for each control. So for each control you will write the same thing. You define what is the control, what its default event is, and only one line its code of declaring that particular text box. That's it. So similarly for label, then radio buttons and checkbox, combo box and list box. That's it. Then comes explain any 4 common properties of WPF form elements. So that is the part of PPT. As you can see, you need to explain only these, any 4 of these highlighted. You explain name, background, text, is enabled, height, width, tooltip property. So any of these, you explain 4 of these mainly. You explain name, background, text, is enabled, or you explain any 4, it will be okay for us. Then comes describe and explain the generalized structure of WPF XML file and code file. So for this, what you will do is, you will just write this design part and code part. So this will be your answer. Just give the generalized syntax of your WPF code. That's it. Moving on to the next question. Write a design and backend code for the following. Create 3 text box txt123 and button 1. On clicking button 1, it should add 2 numbers of text box 1 and text box 2 and display result in text box 3. And again, one more question is that you need to design or write a design and backend code for 2 text box, 2 buttons, and transferring one text to other text and then popping up the text. So for this is the simple answer. You will create one window tag, write this thing, then one grid tag and define all the text box and controls. And the code part, you will just create one event. Don't write anything like this. This you will not ignore in the exam. You will just write down one namespace, this, and then you will just create the event and write the code, nothing else. Remember this thing. You can skip this part. I don't mind. You skip this part. You just write the event and write down the code. That's it. Right. So if I move on to 6 to 8 marks questions, again it will be combination of 4 marks questions only. Let us say explain WPF architecture with neat diagrams. So explain each of its layers. Explain advantages of WPF. Also list its features. So what you will write in this question, you will only write down advantages of WPF as compared to Windows Form. So again, you can write only differentiate between WPF and Windows Phone. That's it. So explain any four common properties of WPF. Also explain and describe generalized structure of WPF XML file. So again, a combination of two questions from 4 marks. Then explain text box and label radio button and radio button. Explain text box, label radio button controls in WPF. Explain checkbox, list box and comma box controls in WPF. So that's it. So again, some programs are there that we already discussed during these sessions of WPF. So already it is available in your PPT as well as in this PDF. So you can just go through this and it will be easy for you to learn. Again, I am repeating, please do not write anything from this. This public class initialize component, don't write. You just write this thing. Even I don't require this private void. You just write this button, one click and write down the code. It will be okay for me. Right, so this is all about your unit number 8. And the last question is, again, I think I have skipped that question. Yeah, define, draw a neat diagram of WPF architecture. Again, the same question. Explain all its features and differentiate WPF and Windows Phone. So it's just the combination of all these questions. It's a repetition, nothing else. Right. So any questions from any of the question bank? So you can raise it right now. I am ready to answer. Then I have some important instructions to be given to you. Any questions from any unit, anyone, you can raise it right now. If you want to speak, just give me your concern here. I will directly unmute you and you can raise your question by your words only. No need to write. Guys, any questions? Respond yes or no. Those who are attending. Yes, Akshay, Avi, Harsh, Mathak, Marthak, Heli, Hetvi, Jamin, Janish, Komal, Meet, Mehul, Roshni, Tumin, Vivek. Regarding the course of Meet 2, you will be informed very soon. Once the management decides, we will inform you. Yes, Meet, what? 5, 6, 7? Yeah, regarding the Mid-Sem 2 syllabus or the dates of Meet 2, it will, once we are informed from the management, you will be informed immediately. So don't worry regarding that thing. But start preparing. That's what I can say you all. Yeah, any other questions? Anything from any unit? Okay, any questions regarding your submissions? Okay. Harsh, I won't be able to perform because my Visual Studio has crashed yesterday. So only thing is I can discuss what exactly you need to do in program number 5 of assignment or tutorial at least. Yes, exactly. Whatever mail I have sent you regarding .NET submission as a title, only you follow that much. Now, there is some doubt from your side. Let me clear that thing first. I think TC1 and TC3 students had some doubt that our books are with Nirali madam. Some of the students only, not all, because Nirali madam has confirmed with me that almost 50% students or 60% students have already taken back their books from me, so they have their books with them only. Only few students' books are with Nirali madam, so that is in the cabin, and that Krishna madam will look over and inform you once the lockdown is over, so you can collect your books from her later on once the lockdown is over. So only assignment 1 you need to submit as a part of assignment submission that you already written in before your mid semester. So don't worry regarding your assignment. If you have submitted your books and if the books are with the madam or in the cabin, then you will submit it after the lockdown. Those who are in Rajkot, they will scan the photos of that particular assignment and upload the PDF or mail me the PDF actually with the proper format as mentioned in your particular mail, right? So now anything regarding assignment first, I will discuss about tutorial later. First, let us clear about the assignment. Anything, anyone from any of the batches, TC1, TC2, TC3, DD1. No, you don't have to mail. If you already submitted your assignment book to ma'am, and if it is checked, you will just verify with Krishna ma'am that yes, it is being done. You just show this sign to her once the lockdown is over. You will have to report to college and you will just show the book to Krishna madam and confirm that yes, your books are checked and your assignment has been submitted. That's it. You don't have to mail the assignment. Remember this thing. Regarding the hostel students, those who have left their books in their hostel rooms, only talking about the assignments, not talking about tutorials right now. Those who have left their books, assignment book in the hostel room, once the lockdown is over, you will report to your college, you will report to your room, get your assignment book, and you will show to your respective faculty that yes, our assignments have been checked. For TD1 and TC2, I will be the faculty. For TC1 and TC3, Krishna madam will look over it. So you can check it out or you can clear it out after the lockdown, you mean. But you need to submit and confirm with your faculty. Then and then your submission will be granted. If it won't be granted and your marks will be 0. So anything regarding assignment now? Anyone? Anything regarding question bank? Yeah, I already informed Krishna madam regarding your issue that some of the books are in the cabin. So Krishna madam will look over it in her cabin, check in the cabin that how many books are available, and then you will be informed. So you can contact Krishna madam with any of the doubts regarding assignment only. Krishna madam, is it okay? You can unmute yourself and inform.
Sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you can inform the students.
Okay. Okay. Once the lockdown is over, check the cabin and the students' books are there. So once the lockdown is over, I will check their books, and then after the students those have already books in there, so come to my cabin and just confirm it that you have submitted the assignment. Then I will update the your status of the assignment submission. Okay.
Clear,
Is it okay?
guys? TC1, TC3. Okay,
Thank you.
now regarding the tutorials. TC2 and TD1 students, listen it carefully. Now for TC1 and TC3, already the list has been sent. You need to follow. You need to write first 5 programs and then scan it and create a PDF. And then you need to append all the 6 to 11 tutorials that is already mailed to you in a Word file and combine one PDF file and send it by mail to me in a proper format of a file name. Is that clear for TC1 and TC3? TC1, TC3 students, just give me the answers. Is it clear? You need to write 1 to 5 programs, scan it, create one PDF of it, and then append 6 to 11 in that PDF. Then rename that PDF as per the format given to you in email and email me. That's it regarding your tutorials. Now, TC2 and TD1 students, there were some issues. I was already getting some email, some messages from your side. So what you will do? If you want to write 1 to 5, you can write once again. It will practice for you because those are the questions that are part of your question bank. So you write 1 to 5 questions, scan it and append 6 to 11 and mail me. That will be okay for me. If you want to write it again. For those who have already written 1 to 5 tutorials with 4 sub programs in each, that will be okay for me. If you don't want to write it again, you just need to recheck your tutorials with me once the lockdown is over. So you will show me around 120 programs, and then what you will do is you will just send the remaining 6 to 11 tutorials as a PDF to me. So you have two choices, TC2 and TD1. Either you write as it is as per the mail 1 to 5 written and 6 to 11 append, or you will show me 1 to 20 programs that you written already as a part of tutorials earlier. That file you will show me and you will send me email of only 6 to 11 tutorials. So that is the only two options. So TC2 and TD1 students, inform the same thing to your friends, but not in a group. You will inform them individually, these two options. Am I clear with the options? TC2, TD1. Yes, you already wrote 1 to 5, so you will only mail 6 to 11, but you will show me 1 to 5 in person once the lockdown is over, before, I would say, your term end officially declares by the college. Is it clear? Am I clear? Is there anyone TD1 student here? Any TD1 student? Okay, meet Vivek. So please inform your friends regarding the same thing properly. That two options are with us, whatever we want to follow, but not in group. Clear? Fine. Anything else? So now I'll just discuss that question with you that Harsh has asked with me. So just a moment. So I'll just discuss in quickly in 2 minutes. Okay. I think Harsh, you are having the question with this library program. So I'm just discussing it. Create a class library there and take necessary input that performs the following. Right. A student can issue maximum 3 books at a time, print all available books in the library, and only issued books can be returned. Right. So right now you consider only one student and take input of its name and enrollment number. Right. Then you will have to perform these 3 functions. That means you will first create one array of books. Let us say book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can store it differently with individual 2D array. That means one book and its name and its quantity. Then book 2, its name and its quantity in an array. No need to use database here. Clear? Then you will just print all these books and then you will create one functionality for issue and return where only one student will be there and it will try to issue a book. So you will just have to maintain the count of the student that how many book it has issued and how many book it has returned. That's it, nothing more. That's it, nothing else you have to do. You just need to implement 2 functionalities. Is it clear? Okay, you can set one flag variable to 1 whenever that book is issued. Or if you want to use database, I am fine with it. I don't mind. Fine, you can use database. I don't mind. Now is it clear? Fine, students. So I think almost all the doubts of yours regarding assignments, tutorials, submissions, and question bank is clear from my side. Am I right? Okay, so I am signing off right now. I will hand over this session to Happy Ma'am now. Okay, okay, good day, students. Stay safe, stay home. Happy Ma'am, you can join now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay, make yourself presenter and you can start.
Okay, sir. Okay. Okay, am I audible, students? Good afternoon.
Yes,
everyone.
everything. Ma'am, just a moment before you start. One
Yes.
announcement for the students. Yes, students, only one thing. Inform your friends as well as you also listen that. If you have any queries still regarding your question bank or anything, kindly call me rather than making a WhatsApp message because I don't use WhatsApp very regularly. So it is possible that your answers may get delayed in WhatsApp. So it's rather to call me. My phone will be available 24/7. So don't worry regarding that thing. But if you have patience, then you can put WhatsApp me. I will surely give you answer in the WhatsApp, but it may get delay in the answers. That's it. Fine. Okay, ma'am. You can continue, and then once the session is over, you can end the webinar as per your
Yeah.
convenience.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay. So let's start with the new chapter, that is parsing. Now, in a previous session, Krishna ma'am, I guess, completed with the scanning chapter. Now we'll start with the parsing. Now, what is the parsing? Okay, now you just need to answer me that what is the parsing methodologies, what is the difference between scanning and a parsing. Write down your answer in the question itself, okay? So that I can understand that how many of you are aware with the concepts of parsing methodologies, right? So write down your answer. What is a parsing? Okay, am I audible, students? Akshay, Avi, Harsh, Ketya, Harsh, Mathak, Haley, Hetvi, Jemin, Komal, Meet, Mehul, Roshni, Ritvik, Tumin, and Umesh. It converts it into parser tree. Okay, near about the answer. Okay, what is the major role of your parser in our compiler? What is the major role of your parser? Role of parser. What is the role of parser? Am I audible, students? Hello? Am I audible, students? Yes, ma'am. Okay. So the major role of parser is to obtain a string of a token generated by the lexicograph, right? So we have a different types of parsing methodologies are there. First, a major concern of, or you can say the major types of parser, that is a top-down parser as well as bottom-up parser, right? Now, what is the major difference between top down and a bottom up? So if I'll say that what is a top down parser, then we will follow something like starting from your non-terminal to the terminal symbol. If I'll move from left hand side to the right hand side, then that is known as something like a top down parser, right? And if I'll say bottom up parser, that means you just need to follow the method which will starting from the leaf node to your root node, right? So can I say that from right hand side to the left hand side of your grammar is known as a bottom up parser, right? Okay, so am I clear with the difference between top down and bottom up? Just say yes or no so that I can verify that should I move further or okay, am I clear with the top down and a bottom up? Say yes or no. Okay, so first one, in a top-down parser, I have furthermore major parts are there. Top-down with backtracking in your top-down. First one, that is top-down with backtracking, and top-down without backtracking. Okay, So what is the major difference between your top down with backtracking and a top down without backtracking? Okay, so let's start with the first one, that is top down with backtracking parser. Now what is the top down with backtracking parser? That means you just need to every time backtrack. If you don't require the first grammar of your given sentence, then you just need to move from your first to the second and second to the third, right? So that is with backtracking. So you cannot directly choose the any one grammar from the given particular grammar, right? You cannot choose the options. So first of all, you just need to go with the first one. If your first will not work, then go with the second option. If your second will not work, then again you just need to backtrack and go with the third one, right? So likewise, you just need to move from first to the second and second to the third. If your first will work, then do not go with the second. Now, if your first will not work, then just go one more time with backtracking methodologies, and whenever you will stop or whenever you will wrong, after from that you can choose the second. So say for example with backtracking parser, now we will deal with the grammar only. So if my E will produce AB or CD or EF, right? And I just need to or capital B, and my capital B can produce E, right? Remove this and go with this. Okay. And the possible string is C, D, E, right? I just need to parse the string CDE using this given grammar. Now, if I follow the top-down with backtracking parser, that means you just need to go with the first time, you just need to go with the E gives to AB. Now, if my AB will not successfully run or not work, why? Because the first one, that is, I required C, and instead of C, I can get A, right? So at that time you just need to backtrack up till this value, and then you can choose the C, D, B with the second time, right? You just need to backtrack from your root leaf node to your root node. Okay, so can I say that from top to bottom, if my first grammar will not work, I just need to go with the second production. Now if my second will run, then I cannot go with the EF, right? Now that is the major difference between a with backtrack and a without backtrack. Okay. Now what is a top down without backtracking method? Now if I'll say top down without backtracking method, say for example for the same grammar and EF, right? And B will give you E, right? And the possible string is CDE. Okay. Now, so as compared with previous one, my top down without backtracking parser will give me some functionalities, some benefit, something like if you know the answer that my first will not work with the given string, then I can directly choose the second production from my given grammar, right? So using this methodology, you don't require to backtrack from a previous one, and there is no any restriction like first time. You just need to choose a first production. If your first will not work, then go with the second one. That type of methodology will not work in the without backtracking parser, right? So I directly choose the CDB. Okay, so up till now, is there any doubt? If you have to say yes or no, so that I can identify that how many of you are sincerely go with this parsing methodologies. Just write down your answer. Am I clear with the difference between top down with backtracking and top down without backtracking methodology? Okay, now this one is 1.1, right? So you can easily identify. And this one is a 1.2, right? Now, in a top-down without backtracking parser, right? We have further more partitions available, right? So something like a recursive descent parser. So can I say 1.2.1? That is known as recursive descent parser, right? Now, one more is there, that is, we all are aware with that, non-recursive parser, right? Or you can say that is LL1 parser, or you can say that it is predictive parser, right? So that is different types of names of your LL1 parser, right? What is LL1? The full form of LL1 is left to right scanning. At a time, you can choose only one loop ahead. Okay, so that is the major concern. Now, what is the LL1? We'll see in the depth. But before LL1, I just complete the bottom up parser also, right? Just major types of parsers, right? Now, up till now, is there any doubt that top down without backtracking parser, I have a major two concern or major two types? First one, that is a recursive descent parser, and second one, that is non-recursive parser, or you can say, or you can known as LL1, or you can say predictive parser, right? Why it is known as predictive parser? Because out of the given all predictions, if you want to choose a second one for the your given grammar or for the given string, you can choose the any of the productions from your given grammar as a first production, right? So that type of restrictions are not there in your predictive parser, or you can say the LL1 parser, right? Okay, so now we'll move further with the bottom up parser, right? So first one we'll complete it with this. Okay, now second one, that is bottom up parser. Now, as the name suggests, right? Bottom up parser, something concepts like you can say the shift or major operations which are we will going to follow in the bottom up, that is something like shift or reduce or error or accept, right? So we can say that our major concern with the 2.1, that is operator precedence parser. Second one, that is LR parser, right? Okay, so the major concern of bottom up parser, that is operator precedence parser as well as the LR parser. Now LR parser is furthermore divided into four major parts. Okay, yes, four major parts. So I require everyone to answer the question. What is the major four different types of LR parser? Now you just need to give me the answer. What is the different types of LR parser? Those are also comes in the bottom up parser only. Give me the name. Okay. Should I compulsory for everyone, or you just give me the answer? Okay, someone. Okay, Rutvik. SLR, CLR, LLR, as well as LR0. Okay. Yes, Akshay. Go with the one more. Okay, LLR. Okay, correct. Right. So the you can say 2.2.1, that is LR0, 2.2.2, that is SLR 2.2.3, that is CLR 2.2.4, that is LLR. Okay, so if I'll say 2.2.1 and 2.2.2, that both the LR parsers can connected with each other, right? Can I say that? Yes, you can say that. Okay, now 2.2.3, that is CLR and LLR, right? So that two are also connected with each other. Okay, so let's start with the first one, that is first terminology which I required for the better convenience of our parser, that is what is the leftmost derivation and what is define the term, what is a leftmost derivation and what is rightmost derivation. Okay, so if you know the answer, just reply in the question panel. Okay, what is the leftmost derivation and what is the rightmost derivation? So in a given grammar, right, if you will go with the first non-terminal is replaced with the first terminal symbol, then the second most non-terminal replaced with the second terminal symbol, that type of methodology is known as the leftmost derivation, right? So from the left hand side to the right hand side, the first non-terminal can be replaced with your terminal symbol. Okay, so say for example something like A, B, C and D. Your B can produce X, Y or X and C can produce Y. Okay, so for the given grammar, if I'll generate something like first A as it is, then I can replace my B with the small x, C as it is and D. Now in the second time, if I'll replace my A x, C is with the Y and D as it is, then this is known as the leftmost derivation. Why? Because from the left to right hand side, my first non-terminal replaced with the terminal and my then second leftmost non-terminal replaced with the terminal, right? So this is known as the leftmost derivation. And what is a rightmost derivation? So same example, B, C and D. B can produce small x, then C can produce Y, and for the output purpose, my A and B as it is, my first time from the right to left, my first non-terminal is replaced with my first non-terminal, rightmost first non-terminal, then that is known as the rightmost derivation. Okay, now I can replace my B. Okay, X, Y, and D, right? So up till now, is there any doubt? What is the rightmost and what is the leftmost derivation? Okay, just reply me, say yes or no. Up till now, is there any doubt? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. So no one is replying the question, so that okay. Let's move further. What is left recursion? Okay, what is a left recursion? So for the left recursion purpose, I have some, you can say the formula for that. That is, if the grammar is known as something like A can produce A alpha or beta, then you just need to clarify that how can you identify that left recursion is present in my grammar or not. So starting with the right hand side's first non-terminal, if right hand side's production's first non-terminal is matched with your left hand side non-terminal, then you can say that left recursion is present in my grammar, right? So for that, you just need to remove the recursion from the given grammar. So for that purpose, just you need to identify that which type of methodology or which type of formula you just need to do. Okay, so from this you just need to remove the left recursion. So for that I have one formula, that is A can produce beta A dash, and your A dash can produce alpha A dash or the epsilon. Okay, now why we require epsilon over here? Now if I'll not put epsilon symbol over here, then that means the beta which I require alone, that will never be generated by your grammar if I'll remove that epsilon symbol from my grammar. Okay, so that's why it is compulsory. Now you just need to remove these A from its place. Okay, so that's why we have three major options, that I can put alpha at the first place, I can put the beta at the first place, or else I can put the epsilon at the first place, right? So for that I can remove the left recursion from the given grammar. Okay, so that is the basic formula for this. Okay, so now I'd request everyone to solve the given question by yourself. Remove the left recursion from given grammar if present. Okay, x y z or x a or xb. Okay, now just remove the left recursion from the given grammar if present in the grammar. Okay, or okay. Now remove the left recursion from given grammar if present. Now first of all, you just have 5 minutes to solve this question. Now everyone complete this question. Okay, first of all, just give me the answer that is there any left recursion present in your given grammar? Say yes or no. Okay, yes. 4, yes. Left recursion is present in your grammar. So how can you remove? What is the alpha of my question and what is the beta of my question? Now identify the alpha and the beta. Just give me the answer. What is the alpha of my grammar and what is the beta of my grammar? Now just reply me. Okay, yes, Rutvik, x gives to f x dash. Yes, so you can identify that f is my beta as well as y z or A or B is the alpha 1, alpha 2 and alpha 3 of my given grammar, right? Yes, good. So now just solve it. Something like x gives to beta dash. Now what is the beta? F is the beta of my question. So f x dash, right? And x dash can produce alpha. What is the alpha? So remove this x, x and x from my given production, right? So yes forum, correct. So y, z, x dash or a x dash or b x dash. And the most important, which is the hero of your production, that is epsilon. Okay, so don't forget to put epsilon in the second grammar. Okay, otherwise the whole production is contain 0 mark. Okay, so up till now, is there any doubt or should I move further? Okay, no doubt. Okay, so now second, what is the left recursion? And one more concept is that is left factory. Okay, now what is the left factory? The question, which is something like ABC or ABD, right? So this type of question is known as the method something like left factoring. Okay, so now if you want to remove the left factoring from the given grammar, then we have a methodology that identify the common productions from or common terminals or non-terminals from the given question, which is starting from the left hand side only. Okay, so what is or which are the common expression or common productions or non-terminals in the given question? That is A and B are the common and C and D are the different. Okay, so you just need to bind your common expressions in original production, that is A can produce A, B, X, right? And your X can produce either C or D, right? So using this expression also, you just need to identify that if I'll left factorize my given grammar, then also the answer of my question should remain as it is, right? There is no any change in the given grammar, right? So from this expression, if I'll move from this to question, then I can easily move, right? So say for example, okay, if we assume AB as X, then is it correct? No, dear. No. Why? Because for this is only for the factorization purpose. Okay. So what is the factorization? That you just need to identify the common production or a common terminal symbols from the given grammar, and then a different part is always in the different non-terminal symbol. Why? Because at the compilation process, your compiler can choose out of these two only, right? Either C or D. Your compiler can replace this X with either C or D. But if you will give that something like X can produce A and B, something like this. Something like this. And this A can produce C or D, or you can put A over here. No, this is wrong. This is correct, but the non-terminal which should always remain A as it is. Okay, so you cannot replace post this. Okay, so that is wrong. Okay. Okay, so I think up till now there is no any issue or no any query, right? So for the example purpose, just complete one more example that M can produce. Okay, so now remove the left factoring from the given question. Yes, you have 5 minutes to solve it. Okay, I'll wait for your answer. Okay, give me the answer. First of all, identify that if is there any left factoring present in your question. Okay, so maybe Cx and x gives to d or epsilon and n gives to g. Okay, so you can say n gives to ABC, right? And x. Okay, and your x can produce except ABC, that d. Okay, or epsilon. Okay, now this G is compulsory section for your M, so I cannot write in this place, okay, or in the X production. So you just have to write it over here only. Okay, done. Up till now, is there any question? Say yes or no. No. Okay, so let's start with the one more question. That is, remove the left recursion from the given grammar. Okay, now we will move to the LL1 concept. Okay, now for the LL1, first one, that is known as the rule number 1. Okay, so now what is a rule number 1? That is, if there is any left recursion present in your question, then remove it. If there is left factoring is present in your question, then also remove it, right? So the first rule for LL1, remove the left recursion from the given grammar. Okay, step number 2, find out the first and follow of your given grammar, right? Now, first and follow. And the third one, that is parsing table. And the fourth one step, that is string parsing. Okay, now what is the string parsing of your given question? That if in a question there is a mention something like parse this given string or check that given string is parsed using the given grammar or not, at that time you just need to parse the string using a stack only. Okay, using stack. Okay. Okay, so let's start with the first question for the LL1. Okay, right now for the LL1, the first and foremost question that we all are aware with that is E can produce E plus E or T or E, then your T can produce T star F or F, and your F can produce capital E with bracket or ID. Okay, so let's go with the first step, that is remove the left recursion. Okay, first of all identify that is there any left recursion present in your grammar? Say yes or no. Yes, left recursion is there. Okay, so where is the left recursion? Over here, that E and E both are matched. T and T match. Okay, so what is the alpha? Plus and T is the alpha. That all the productions or non-terminals which is with the only E, that all are known as alpha, and the alone terminal or non-terminal is known as the beta. Okay, same over here, that this is alpha and that this is beta. Okay, forum, very good. Go ahead. And in the last expression, I don't have any left recursion. Okay. Okay, complete it. E gives to plus T E dash, then E dash gives to okay, E gives to T E dash and E dash gives to plus T E dash. Okay, Ritik, yeah, correct. T gives to F T dash. Okay, forum, how can you give the answer that E gives to plus T E dash? E gives to only T. Why? Because your A can produce beta I dash. So beta is your T. So there is no any requirement of plus in the E expression. Okay, Ritwik, correct. Okay, correct. So now the question of LL1 is something like TE dash plus TE dash produce FT dash. T dash can produce star FT dash or small e, that is represented as epsilon over here. Okay. And F as it is because there is no any justification. Okay, now find out the first and full. Okay, should I repeat the every step of first and follow, or you know the answer, or you are very much aware with that, so that I can directly start with the what is first and what is full? Yes, I have to repeat follow. Okay, is there any doubt? Only in a follow. Okay, okay, is there anyone who wants to repeat the first? Okay, so as per the rule, the first set is E gives to starting bracket and ID, E dash, the first is a terminal symbol, that is plus, and second one, that is epsilon. Okay, now T, that is starting bracket and ID, T dash, star and epsilon. F, that is starting bracket and okay. So I think there is no any question in a first set. Okay, now just go with the follow. Okay, now first of all identify where is the E in a given question. Okay, now this is the question. Okay, where is the E? Okay, over here. So the next place of E is terminal symbol. So you can directly take the closing bracket as a full. Okay, now is there any E? Yes or no? No. And the rule is something like, so your first non-terminal always contain a dollar as a follow of your given example, given production, right? Now identify where is the capital E over here. So the next position, follow of E is a terminal symbol. Your closing bracket is known as terminal. So terminal can directly be a follow of your non-terminal. Okay. So up till now, is there any doubt? No. Now, what is the follow of E dash? Okay, so identify where is the E dash over here. Okay, so what is the follow of E dash? So there is no any terminal or non-terminal after your E dash. So you can directly identify that if there is no any symbol after your given question, after your non-terminal, then the follow of your parent node, that is always being a follow of your E dash. Okay, so if your E dash or if your non-terminal is always at the end of your given production, at that time you just need to find out the parent node. What is the parent node over here? E is my parent node. So write down the follow of your parent in the E dash. Okay, so all the follow of your parent node will become the follow of your last child. So over here, dollar, comma, closing bracket. Okay. Yes. Now where is the E dash? Over here. Now same situation. After E dash, there is no any production. Why? Because this is another production, right? So in a one production, I have only plus T and E dash. Okay. So after E dash, I don't have any terminal or non-terminal. In that case, you just need to watch the parent node. Okay. What is the parent node? E dash. So write down the follow of your parent node. That is always a dollar in closing bracket, right? So up till now, is there any doubt? say yes or no so that I can move further with the T. Okay, no. Okay, so okay, Danish, welcome. Right. So what is the follow of T? Now identify the T in the right hand side. Is there any T? Yes, over here. So after T, I have one more non-terminal symbol. So whenever your one non-terminal symbol can followed by another non-terminal symbol, in that case, you just need to identify the first of your next non-terminal. What is the first of your E dash? So first of your E dash is a plus and epsilon symbol. So write down the plus over here. I can never write epsilon in the follow. So in that case, just put the epsilon symbol in your given production, right? So now put your epsilon over here, right? Why? Because E dash can produce epsilon. So in place of E dash, I can put epsilon, right? So the case number 2, a non-terminal is at the last position. In that situation, you just need to identify the follow of your parent node. So what is the follow of your parent node? That is a dollar and closing bracket. Okay, so up till now, is there any doubt? E dash has it. Up till now, is there any doubt? Okay, no. Now, where is T over here? So one more time. T is followed with your E dash, and your E dash is a non-terminal symbol. So in that case, you just need to identify the first of your E dash. So what is the first of your E dash? The first of your E dash, that is a dollar and a closing bracket. Now write down the dollar and a closing bracket, but do not write it in a second time. Okay. So dollar and a closing bracket, I have already in my follow set. Okay. Now, is there any epsilon symbol? No. So the E dash, so the first of your E dash, that is a plus and epsilon, right? So plus over here and put the epsilon over here. So in that case, follow of your E dash. So what is the follow of your E dash? That is a dollar and a closing bracket, right? So plus dollar and a closing bracket, right? So how did plus come in a follow of T? Okay, follow of T, that means the T followed by your E dash. So if your non-terminal followed by one more non-terminal, then a new non-terminal's first will become the follow of your T, right? Forum, am I clear? That the first of E dash. Okay, so first of E dash, that is plus. So plus over here, and it will also generate epsilon. So put epsilon in the place of E dash. So now the T is at the last place. There is no any symbol after your T. So the if no any terminal or non-terminal followed by myself, at that time follow of my parent node will become a follow of mine. Right, so the follow of E dash, that is a dollar and a closing bracket over here, right? So I think I'm clear with your doubt. Okay, right? Now the T dash, what is the follow of your, what is the follow of your T dash? Okay, so the follow of your T dash, where is the T dash? In a right hand side, over here and over here, right? So is there any non-terminal or terminal after your T dash? No. In that case, you just need to go with the follow of your parent. So the follow of your parent is a plus, comma, dollar, comma, closing bracket. Okay. Now What is the follow of your f? Okay. Now, what is the follow of your f? Okay. Just write down the follow of your f. Okay, everyone. If you are clear with the rule of first and follow, then write down the follow of your given question. What is the follow of your f? I'll wait for 2 minutes. Star and small e. No small e is represented as the epsilon symbol. So the follow will never contain epsilon symbol. Rutvik, star plus dollar closing. Okay, very good. So the follow is star plus dollar and a closing bracket. Okay. Okay. So up till now, is there any question in a first and follow? Is there any doubt? Say yes or no. No. Okay. So the second step, we are completed with the second step. Okay. Now the third one, that is a parsing table. Okay, now what is the parsing table for the given production? Okay, so starting with the terminal symbol in the column, that is first one, that is ID, second one plus, then star, then starting bracket, then closing bracket, and the last one, that is dollar. Okay, there is no requirement to add the epsilon symbol, right? So starting with the first one, that is E. So make sure that you have a first and a follow set in your given question. Okay, so what is the production of your E? That is E gives to T E dash, right? So write down the production over here, that E gives to T E dash. Okay, over here. Okay, now, and the second one, that is starting bracket. So over here. Sorry. That E can produce T E dash, right? So go with the E dash. So plus and epsilon. So write down E. Okay. So in my E dash, I have a 2 production. Okay, and your one row and a column, or you can say one cell will never contain more than 1 entries. Okay, so in that case, you just need to identify that where I should put the plus TE dash production and where I need to put the epsilon symbol. Okay, so write down the first production, that is E dash gives to plus TE dash in a plus only. Okay, so over here, that E dash gives to plus TE dash. Okay, so up till now, is there any doubt? Yes or no? And for the epsilon purpose, I don't have any epsilon symbol in my column, right? So in that case, you just need to find out the follow of your E dash. So what is the follow of your E dash? Dollar and a closing bracket. So dollar and a closing bracket always contain the entry with E gives to epsilon as well as E gives to epsilon. Okay, am I clear up till now? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. So now write down the T dash and F in your book. Okay. Complete the table in your book. Everyone, complete the table in your book. Okay, I'll wait for a while and just write down the whole table in your book. So are you completed with the table? Yes or no? Completed with the table? Just say yes or no. So let's move further with the next topic. That is, what is the major difference between the parse tree and a syntax tree? Okay, so I think you all are aware with the major difference between a parse tree and syntax tree. Okay, so the first one, that is roots or interior nodes in the parse tree are always a non-terminal, and leaf nodes are always a terminal symbol in the parse tree. Okay, and in a syntax tree, if I'll say interior nodes or the root nodes are always the operators and the leaves are always the terminal symbols. Okay, so the second point is, you can say, the rarely constructed as a data structure. Okay, and the second point in the syntax tree, that whenever you require or representing a program in a tree structure, right? So usually you use a syntax tree. Okay, for the programming concern. Okay, why? Because every time you just start with the one string only, so you can say that a one string can uh, convert it into the syntax tree only at the first time, And the last point, that is represents the complete syntax of a program using the parse tree. And using the syntax tree, you can say that this is the absolute, or you can say a abstract syntax of a program, or you can say a semantic of your given program. Okay. Now, if you say that what is the example of a sparse tree and the syntax tree, so for that you can use this grammar for representing a parse tree or a syntax tree. Okay, and the grammar or a string, something like id plus id star id. Okay. So in that case, root nodes are always starting with the e. So your e can generate e plus e, something like this. Okay. Then your this e can produce id, and your this e can produce something like id star id for the better convenience. Okay. So up till now, is there any doubt in example of a parse tree? Just say yes or no so that I can identify that how many of you are live for the session. No doubt. Okay. And move with the syntax tree. For the same example, you just need to start with the plus symbol, that your plus can generate id as well as enter your node, that is star, and your star can generate a 2 id as well. So you can easily say that if it is something like this, you can better identify what I want to discriminate. Okay, something like this. Okay, your plus can something like this, can produce id, then your this one can generate star, and your star can produce id as well as one more id. Okay, so this is the structure of your syntax tree. Okay, am I clear with this? Yes or no? Okay, so I'll give you some time, let's say 5 minutes, to revise whole session, and just let me know if you have any doubt up till now. Okay, so that we'll revise next portion in the upcoming session. Okay, so methodologies are different types of parsers. What is leftmost, what is rightmost derivation, what is left recursion, what is left factoring, examples. And let's start with the LL1. So the steps of find out the first and a follow, generate the table, what is the major difference between parse tree and a syntax tree, how can you draw the parse tree, and how can you draw the syntax tree. Okay, so that is the syntax tree. Okay, and for the same grammar, grammar is always same, but the syntax tree and a parse tree concept is a different thing. Okay, so that is the major difference between your parse tree and a syntax tree. Okay, so I think you all are aware with this. I'll conclude my session over here. Okay, I think there is no any question. Okay, so up till now, there is no any doubt. Okay, so stay safe, stay to your home, and we'll discuss further topics in our next sessions. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.